Welcome back to the Heritage Home Podcast. Today, I want to talk about how to choose where to put down roots. Let's get into it. Many of you already know this, but if you're new here, the heart behind the Heritage Home and the Heritage Home Podcast is me sharing my journey pursuing life as a homemaker, possibly even on a homestead, on a lot of land one day, but right now being in the circumstance where I am single in a city. You see a lot of commentators who are already married and already at that point, which I'm so grateful for, having them share their stories and their journeys to get there and gleaning from them. But you don't hear much of someone in my situation where I am single, I am a city, I want that life. What are the practical steps to get there, to get there? And part of that is understanding the process of how to choose where you want to put down your long-term roots, whether that be when you're 40 or 30 or 25, whenever that comes in. Where do you want to grow your long-lasting community? Where do you want to settle with your husband? Where do you want to raise your children? Where do you want your grandkids and great-grandkids to come back to visit you? Maybe you have multiple places that you settle down. Maybe one's temporary for a season and then long-term where you want to retire. It can look a variety of different ways, but at least now, of course, there are many different problems going on in the world, in your immediate world. We're all the main characters of our own stories. But these are things that you should consider. You should start preparing for them before you get to that point, before you get married and have to decide where you want to move to. It's also important to know going into dating so you can date with intention and let your partner know, hey, this is where I want to be one day. This is how you have those conversations to have those aligned goals in wanting to put down your roots. And then in this video, I'll share more about where I have had my heart set on where I want to set down my roots one day, but throughout this process, throughout this video, I'll share the different considerations that go into making that decision of where to put down roots. Let's jump into the different considerations. Consideration number 1, faith community. As a Christian, as a conservative Christian, where you, especially in 2025, where you choose to put down roots is so critical once you're at the stage of raising a family. It's important when you're single, it's important when you're married or dating in a relationship, but it's even more important, it's most important once you have kids in the picture. You want to live in a place where there are 2 factors you could go. You can go where you can grow and nourish in your faith, or where you can serve your community. If you choose the former route of going somewhere where you can be openly Christian, you can pray in coffee shops and not get strange looks. You can walk down the street and, have Christian apparel and not get strange looks or any backlash on the street. Those are places where you have a lot of like-minded people around you that can support you and help you grow in that faith and grow in that community. You have, in the South as an example, in the Bible Belt, you have churches on every street, whether it be a variety of Protestant denominations or even Catholic churches. You have all of that available to you in the South, in most places in the South. This can even be the restaurants, the coffee shops, the establishments in your community. Are these places that have signs posted out in their window of, oh, we support these communities and these peoples? Does that mean that they are against you as a Christian? Not necessarily, but you want to take that in consideration of finding somewhere that is going to be openly Christian. Do they have a cross in their window? Do they have Bible verses posted on their walls as decor? These are things that make it easier to acclimate to that culture and knowing that, hey, I'm accepted here. My faith is accepted here. I can grow with people. I can meet people in these locations, whether it be the business owners, the other patrons to the establishment. I can build community through them and grow in my faith. Not just that, I can build a community to have a village and have friends that become babysitters, that become caretakers for my children one day as well, and vice versa. The latter piece of that is being in a community that is not as faith-focused, but it's where somewhere you want to serve in. It's where you can be the light. Now, I would not recommend going to the deepest, darkest places, especially if you have a family, because that's tough and not going to be enjoyable at all. But having somewhere where you know, okay, I'm going to be slightly challenged here. It's not going to be super easy to find communities or establishments that are open to having me come in and my family come in. I'm going to have more strange looks if I'm praying over a meal at a restaurant. You can have opportunities there to be a light and to share your light to others, but it's going to be more challenging, and that's just something to consider. It doesn't mean you write off these locations. There are many major cities that have a balance of the two, or even suburbs that have a balance of the two. It's just something to be aware of before you make a commitment to buy property in this space or build on a property in these areas. The second consideration, this is the moral climate. You want to understand the moral climate of where you potentially want to put down roots. I'll use a classic example that I'm sure you're all aware of, California. California is an absolutely beautiful state. It has such great locations for outdoor activities, even city culture in many places. In some parts, it would, in theory, be a great place to raise a family, but unfortunately, today, the modern climate, the moral climate today, in many ways, makes it pretty much uninhabitable for most Christian conservatives. It's going to have establishments that are not welcoming at all to Christians, at least open Christians. They'll say that they are. They'll say, hey, come on in. But once you practice your faith out in public, it's going to be a different story. You're not going to have as many supporting establishments that would also help grow your faith. There may be, on the opposite side, establishments that deter you from your faith, that plunge you into darkness, that pull you away from God, that take you off your righteous path. And it's not necessarily, again, California is just an example that's an easy target at this point. It could be a variety of smaller scale cities within or across America. In some ways, Dallas is that. In other ways, it's not. It really just is something to consider when you're looking for that immediate community that you want to settle down in. Going back to the last point, how much do you want to serve your community? How much do you want to sit back, relax, grow within your immediate community? Of course, you want to be a light and following God's word, and as Matthew has called us to do, but that can happen in your extended community. It doesn't have to happen right at home. And that's what this is really targeting. How do you consider your 20-mile radius? What do you take into consideration to establish that? The third consideration is having a strong support system, whether this be friends, family, strong acquaintances, whatever that looks like. You want to have a strong support system. In modern day, we have people graduate high school and they move away from their families. They go to another state, they go to another city, they create their own families with spouses who did the same thing, and we're all now segmented around the country, even the world in some cases, and we don't have that immediate community to rely on. I would say, one, consider changing that habit, changing that pattern of our society and culture. Live close to family. You don't have to live right down the street, but within 30 minutes, at least less than an hour, I would say, live closer to community or to your immediate family. I'm not even doing that in practice right now. I moved to Dallas from Georgia for work, and this is, for the most part, a temporary position, and I have the intention of moving back closer to family, but that's something that helps aid a village to support your family, especially when you do have children. This support system, if it's not going to be family, you need to have good, strong friends. This goes back to the earlier points, living in a community that is faith-focused, that has people with the same beliefs and morals as you do. How do they feel about crunchy matters? How do they feel about feeding sugar to your children? How do they feel about sugar intake? How do they feel about screens and screen time? How do they feel about being open and roaming the neighborhood alone without parental supervision? These are things that apply to yourself as a single person. These are decisions that you need to make for yourself. How do I want to have a good relationship with food and a healthy balance with healthy foods, no seed oils, no processed sugars, all those things that you eventually want to find a partner who agrees with those things and then ultimately pass it down to your children. You want to go on a date night, or you need to go run an errand or go on a trip, or whatever the case may be. You want to know that you have your kids in capable hands that will agree with your beliefs and decisions. It's not just about crunchy things, it's about faith. You want your kids to adopt your own beliefs, and it makes sense to live in a community with like-minded people, to have that support system in your friends, to also instill those beliefs in your children. Who do you want to let close into your life as an individual, and then ultimately your children as a family. I know for me, my closest friends in Dallas, we are all literally the same in our opinions about things, in our lifestyle choices and all of those things. And I know that one day when I need them, or if I need them to support or help or whatever that looks like, I know I can trust them because they're my friends. And this speaks to your closest friends. This does not speak to acquaintances. Of course, we're called to love everyone, be friends. In English, the word friend can be misconstrued with what the actual intention is, or I guess the tiers of friends. But we're talking A-level friends. Of course, B, C, D, whatever level of friends, you can also have those, but they're not the ones you're going to call in an emergency situation. They're just not. They're not the ones you're going to turn to for godly advice. If you're a Christian, you should be turning to godly friends to give you godly advice. You do not want advice from the world. You do not want advice of the world. You want godly advice. You want friends who will turn you back to Christ and encourage you in your walk and decisions that are according to that walk as well. It's very important to build a strong support system, whether that be friends, family. Where you choose to put down roots should be intentional to be as close to those people as possible. Or if that's not possible, then to put yourself in a community that you're able to create those new friendships and ultimately that new extended family. The fourth consideration is the more practical one. Of course, you all already know this. Pick somewhere that has good schools in the area, is relatively walkable. It's safe to be outside. You're not going to get attacked or in danger or anything. No crime in the area. Of course, these are all the standard go-to of where do you choose to live. When it comes to schooling, of course, being more traditional, I want to one day homeschool my children. That is for a variety of reasons. Let me know in the comments if you're interested, and I can do another video on those reasons. I think it's interesting, the perspective of wanting to pursue homeschooling, having not been homeschooled and not having children yet, versus people who are already in that homeschooling situation. So if you want me to talk about that more, would be more than happy to. But that's something that you should still consider if you want to homeschool your kids, because you want an area that is still going to be safe. You want an area that's still well desired to be in. You can homeschool your kids anywhere, of course, especially if you're mobile or have the ability to be mobile, and take them to travel for more in-person learning opportunities. But in your home base, you want them to be in a good community for good schooling. Even if they want to interact with the other kids, whether it be at church, at the park, you want them to interact with kids who have similar practices, similar beliefs, similar systems. And a lot of that comes down to the schooling. It's not perfect science, but I think we all agree for the most part, you want to live in the school area with good schools. If you look at Zillow or Redfin, all those housing websites, they're going to have the local school ratings on the property listings as well. So it's all important, very straightforward. Of course, be practical with your decisions of where to move. It's a no-brainer there. The fifth and final consideration of how to choose where to put down roots is to be legacy-minded. I made an earlier point about having a location or a home or property where one day your great-grandkids, your grandkids, whoever is in your genealogy at that point can come and visit you, visit grandma and grandpa, and have a place that's even big enough to support all of that. Now, that doesn't mean that you're going to move there now, but these roots, like I said, could be temporary. You put down roots for 10 years, then you put down roots again for another 10 years at another location, then 10 more years somewhere else, and then your forever home. That forever home should definitely have that legacy-minded consideration. This is property that after you pass may be passed down to your children or your grandchildren, whoever is in your will. It may be property that stays in your family, or maybe you set up to, hopefully I would say, especially from a heritage home perspective, you're doing that to have your children take over and live there one day. You don't want to sell it. This is a heritage home that you want to build one day in your forever home. But even before that, you want to put yourself in positions to take steps incrementally to get to that point. And each of those houses or properties, apartments, condos, whatever in the journey to get there are also going to be heritage homes. These are also places that are legacy minded, that are conducive to hosting and inviting friends and family over. These are places that are in locations that have everything else we talked about considered, so that not just 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, 50 years from now, it's going to be a great place to live. It's going to be a great place to visit. It's going to still be a heritage home. That's what you want to keep in mind when you are picking these places. You want to pick places that are still relatively close to family or any support system, whatever that looks like. Places that are safe, places that are faith-focused, especially from a Christian perspective, places that have good moral climate from a conservative perspective. You want to pick places that support all of these concepts. So that's the fifth consideration. Now that we talked through all the 5 considerations, I'm sorry that was a little choppy to get there, but we made it to the end of the video. I'm going to share where I choose, or where I have chosen to put down my roots long term. Now this is for my forever home. This is one day. I don't know when that day will be, but for now I am living in Dallas, Texas. I am here temporarily. Like I said, this is just for work. My job has offices around the nation, so hopefully if I do have to move anytime soon, I can move to another location so I can continue working for the time being. Long term, of course, I want to be a stay-at-home mom, so I'm not, married to the job, but for now, it's what's supporting me. Next step would be when I get married to move with my husband, wherever he may be, whether that be in Texas, Dallas, somewhere else. Next step would be to move with my husband. Being in a traditional relationship, more likely than not, I would end up moving to be with him versus him moving to be with me. And that may mean changing jobs or not working. It just depends. We'll cross that bridge when we get there. But that's the next steps. Next step after that is making progressive moves towards the Southeast. That is the region that I want to be in long term. That's where I want to raise a family. Many reasons. One, I grew up in Georgia in the Southeast. I miss the tall trees. I miss the hills. I miss, believe it or not, slightly humid weather compared to the dry heat of Dallas. It's just comforting. It's home. It's just where I grew up and I miss it a lot. So I know regardless of where I live, I would love to be back in the Southeast, anywhere really around the Blue Ridge Mountains. With that being said, I would love to be in Tennessee. I know some of my favorite political commentators live in Nashville. A lot of people I know live in Nashville, and they have raved about how good of a community it is. My campus ministry in college is headquartered in Nashville, and so I've made several trips out there for leadership events where I've gone to explore the city and the people, and it's absolutely amazing. When I say Nashville, I don't mean like the city itself. I'm not too familiar with downtown, uptown, downtown. I don't even know Nashville. I really go down to the suburbs when I go, either south suburbs of Nashville or northeast suburbs for conferences and different meetings and events. And the suburbs have all been amazing. They're all super, super safe, very, very clean. Everyone is sweet and kind. I've never had a bad experience in Nashville ever. And I've been, probably over a dozen times at this point. My favorite though is about an hour south of Nashville, Franklin Spring Hill area. The absolute sweetest people I've ever met. It's a lot of country living, quiet, lands, but still people are pretty modern, pretty contemporary for the most part. And it's just such a sweet, slow life that I would love. You're relatively in the mountains, otherwise just about an hour from the mountains. You have a lot of open land. If I want to have a homestead there, I think it would be the perfect place to do so. Homeschooling, there's a really big homeschooling community in and around Nashville as well, which is something that's very important to me. Whether I do a co-op or raising my kids or homeschooling my kids in the home, I will have that support system from others who have been through that before. Something else with Nashville is it is one of the fewest cities, like big cities, popular cities, that is a place where me and my family could be openly Christian and conservative and not be outcasts, would not get strange looks, not, have anything odd about that. It's very open and accepting of that because most people are the same way. And I think that's so great to be able to have that peace of mind of knowing wherever we go, we're surrounded by people who are like us. And does that mean that's anything bad or negative? I think that can be easily twisted. There are many places in this world where people are or like to go, where people are like-minded and they're the same. I'm not saying it's the same in how we look or how we act. It's literally our beliefs. I want to go somewhere where people love America and love God and love their families, and that is Nashville. It's just amazing. So it's also my family in Georgia, only a few hours away from them. If I really wanted to, I'm not a big beach person. If I really wanted to, a few hours on the beach in the coast in South Carolina, North Carolina, even Georgia. It's just overall a really good place to be. It's all those considerations I talked about before. I took all those into consideration for myself and what I would like to have in my future family, how I would like to construct a heritage home, and I landed on Nashville, Tennessee. Will I get there one day? Who knows? Time will tell. We'll see. Otherwise, as long as I'm in a place that supports my faith and I can be a light to others while also not having my light sucked out, I think, or I guess stifled is a better word, is where I'd be happy to be. So I hope this video helped. Let me know where you have decided to put down your roots, where you're thinking about putting down your roots. Other considerations that I didn't mention that is very, very important to consider before deciding where to live. And I will talk to y'all in the next video. Bye, guys.